Welcome to another episode of Gene Therapy, A Whole New World, the segment where science meets storytelling and we unpack the mysteries behind gene therapy, one conversation at a time. I'm your girl, Hanna, and today's topic blends heart and science. What makes someone ready for gene therapy? And is our healthcare system actually ready? We're calling this one, When Does Gene Therapy Make Sense? And we've got two powerhouse guests to help unpack it all. First, Stanford law professor Hank Greely and hematologist from Western Pennsylvania, Dr. Margaret Ragni. It's a whole new world gene therapy segment brought to you by CSLBehring and their hemophilia B gene therapy treatment. To learn more about gene therapy, hear patient stories, and view additional support resources, visit beyondhemb.com or download B Support wherever you get your apps for more information and to manage your treatment journey. So, when does gene therapy make sense? And what do doctors really consider when recommending it? Gene therapy is a potential game changer for those living with hemophilia, a lifelong condition that has historically required regular infusions to manage. But while gene therapy could offer hope, the question remains, when is the right time for a patient to consider? And what factors do medical professionals consider when determining eligibility? Let's start with Professor Hank Greely, a professor at Stanford who emphasizes that gene therapy doesn't have a one-size-fits-all answer.
So the first two words of any answer I ever should give to anything should always be, it depends, because we've learned a variety of different lessons, and not all gene therapy contexts are the same. So one lesson we have learned is FDA and the EMA in Europe are willing to approve gene therapies in a rigorous but ultimately, I think, reasonable way. So I think FDA has been flexible.
So the FDA has been flexible, but then there's the elephant in the room, cost. Gene therapy, like many new treatments, come with a significant price tag. But what does the price tag actually cover? And how does it compare to the lifetime cost of traditional treatments? The complexity of gene therapy only amplifies these costs.
How do you pay for the development of that treatment? How do you pay for the approval process for that treatment? How do you pay for just making that treatment in a way that's affordable? And this is not just gene therapies. I mean, this is any kind of therapy for a really rare disease. Gene therapy is a little bit at the extreme edge because it is more complicated than almost every other therapy that we try. But it's a matter of degree, not a matter of kind, that differentiates gene therapies from therapies for other rare diseases.
Cost is always a major factor in medical treatments and gene therapy. Due to its complexity, it's no exception. Dr. Greely continues to shed light on the key ethical questions that we should all be pondering.
The most important ethical questions in any kind of drug or treatment development are always, is it safe and is it effective? We often don't think of those as ethical. Those are the regulatory requirements, et cetera, but those are profoundly ethical. It's really unethical to sell somebody something that's unreasonably unsafe, or to sell them something, especially for millions of dollars.
That brings us to the heart of it all, the patient. Dr. Margaret Ragni, the medical director of the Hemophilia Center of Western Pennsylvania, is here to share with us her approach when discussing gene therapy with her patients.
To get a novel therapy, they have to understand it first, and they have to want to get it. I would never, ever consider anything unless the patient said, Dr. Ragni, I want to do this. And then I'll even stop and say, are you sure? It's not a light decision. I know some people go, I'm just so fed up with this hemophilia IVs every week or every couple days or whatever it is. And actually that does drive a lot of the interest. Of course, we want to make our lives more livable, more cured, more dependable, less risky, more enjoyable, whatever all the right words are. And so we really want to be sure we're doing this right.
Dr. Ragni stresses the importance of informed patient choices. It's not just about pushing new therapies. It's about ensuring that patients are fully educated on the risks and benefits. In her practice, she places emphasis on the patient autonomy.
It is not a rush. Why rush? They've had the disease their whole life, right? So, it's taking time to do the right thing. That's what this is about. And then the science questions can come. We can explain them simply. We can explain them difficultly, complexly, whatever is needed, whatever is the interest of the patient.
This approach is a reminder that even in the fast-moving world of gene therapy, it is essential to slow down, make sure that every decision is patient-centered. For some, that means carefully evaluating whether gene therapy is right for them.
What they notice immediately is they feel better because they're not having any more bleeds, okay? And that almost flavors everything that comes after the gene therapy. They are quality of life hugely better. Do they still have some aching here and whatever there? Yes. But the most impressive thing to me is the joy they have. They can play with their kids without worrying that they're going to get another joint bleed, or they can go to work.
So when does gene therapy make sense? The answer is complex. But both Dr. Ragni and Professor Greely agree it comes down to the personalized care, whether it's the safety of the procedure, the cost, or the patient's individual journey. It's a decision that requires collaboration across all fronts.
The patient is the center of the issue. This is about equity. Patients are talking to the physicians, to their families, to the nurses, to whoever they feel most comfortable with, or maybe the group. But we collaborate. We work together to understand it and make sure, hey, if so-and-so explains this so they understand it better than me, let's get them in there to talk and to make sure they feel comfortable about what's going on and that all their questions were answered. And we slow it down.
When considering gene therapy, eligibility can differ depending on whether it's hemophilia A or hemophilia B. For hemophilia A, factors like the liver health and the presence of inhibitors are important, especially since certain treatments can impact liver function. For hemophilia B, specific factors like a history of factor IX prophy come into play, but are not impacted by the presence of pre-existing neutralizing antibodies. While testing for these antibodies is an option, patients with positive results are not excluded from the treatment. In both cases, it's essential for healthcare providers to carefully evaluate each patient and to ensure the treatment is safe and effective.
Well, first and foremost, we want this to be a safe endeavor. So, first of all, the current gene therapy does not work in children because their cells are too rapidly dividing. So we are immediately not having children. That doesn't mean it'll be that way forever, but for right now, we don't. So we're excluding kids. If you have an inhibitor, the trouble is right now, the way gene therapy is set up, if you start making that factor, it will give you an inhibitor if you didn't have it, or if you have an inhibitor, in other words, if you didn't have one detectable at this time but have one in the past. But if you also had one before, it may spike your levels so high you're going to be in a little worse situation than you had been. So we are very careful about inhibitors.
Liver health is a key consideration for hemophilia B gene therapy. Before treatment, patients need thorough liver assessments to ensure there's nothing such as advanced fibrosis or active hepatitis infections going on. While many adults with hemophilia may have been exposed to hepatitis C, advancements in the antiviral treatment have improved liver health management and reduced related risks. Ongoing monitoring of liver function after treatment is also essential, as gene therapy can cause temporary liver enzyme elevations.
Most adults with hemophilia have been exposed to hepatitis C if they're 35, 40, or above. So it's not that you couldn't have been exposed to it, but you have to have taken antiviral therapy so that the viral load is not detectable. And the good news about the current therapies is they are almost universally effective. Just bottom line, we have to be sure your liver is healthy. If your liver is good, you are good to go if you don't have an inhibitor and you're the right age.
And beyond safety and eligibility, we are back to the issue of long-term cost.
So I think one lesson is the FDA process, although it can be frustrating, for the most part worked. That's not been the real problem, I think. The real problem has been more on the access, economics, and patient friendliness side. Why is that? Part of it is it's really expensive. And even though I think if it works as we hope that it will work, in the long run, it will save money, even apart from the amount of human suffering and death that it will avoid. So it's actually financially, a lot of these things, not all, but a lot of them are cost savings as well as grief saving. The fact that over 10 or 20 years it'll pay itself off doesn't necessarily make the insurance company that's asked to pay $3 million right now happy, because they don't know whether you're going to be their patient next year or the year after, or in all those years when the money savings from the fact that you're not having crises regularly add up.
While cost and access are still major hurdles, the human side of gene therapy remains key. Dr. Margaret Ragni reminds us that what truly matters is the patient, their lived experience, their well-being, and readiness for what gene therapy could mean for them.
I think what we do is we evaluate the patient. How well are they? What chronic diseases do they have, if any? How do their lab tests look? How does their physical exam look? How do they feel? But I think it ends up being more about how well is the patient and how well are they doing.
So, when does gene therapy make sense? Well, it depends. It depends on your health, your history, your hopes, your dreams, and your access. Gene therapy isn't just a treatment, it's a decision, one that calls for time, trust, teamwork, even some homework, I think. So far, we've looked at the clinical trial data, the community's response, and how hemophilia research can help advance all the rare diseases. But there's another side, one that's rarely discussed. In our next segment, we'll take a closer look at the mental and emotional impacts of gene therapy and hear from patients and providers about the unseen effects of the lifelong changing treatment. Until then, listeners, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time on Gene Therapy, A Whole New World. It's your girl, Hanna, and we are signing off.